The Pittsburgh Penguins have officially recalled Sergei Murashov from Wilkes-Barre, but will he play? Pat and I are going to discuss that right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes. You can follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Damp. You can follow him on all social media platforms at Synonym for Wet. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins, and you can find us on Instagram at LockedOn_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making us your first listen/watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. Pat, the Penguins had their official team picture day on Tuesday. That's why they were practicing at PPG Paints Arena, though only a optional practice. The full practice will be on Wednesday up in Cranberry before the team flies out to Newark to try and clinch a playoff spot against the New Jersey Devils. But before that practice happened on Tuesday, the Penguins announced that they had officially recalled Sergei Murashov from Wilkes-Barre Scranton. He got to the game on Sunday after the game started. They were trying to get him there before, but again, Wilkes-Barre is about 4 to 4.5 hours away from Pittsburgh. Wheeling, only about an hour, so that's why they officially announced that Taylor Gauthier had been recalled, but he is now being sent down to Wilkes-Barre as Murashov is now up here in Pittsburgh. And Pat, all three goaltenders were out there at practice today. Artie Shilovs, Stuart Skinner, and Sergei Murashov. Taylor Haas of DK Pittsburgh Sports reported that his eye seemed a lot better. Josh Owie of The Athletic said the same thing, that he looked fine at practice. So that begs the question, what is going to happen this week? My guess is one of Shilovs or Skinner will start on Thursday. TBD if Murashov is going to be the backup. I think if they clinch on Thursday, there's a better chance that Murashov could stay and maybe get a start in a game where they're already clinched, especially, Pat, if they get the second spot locked up too, because say the Flyers lose tonight in regulation to the Devils, all the Penguins need to do on Thursday is beat the Devils. Not only are they in, they have the number 2 seed locked up, and they're not really playing for much else to end the season. Like, you're already locked in your playoff spot. We all know Carolina's winning the Metropolitan Division. So at that point, you can maybe give Murashov a start, one of the games against Washington, maybe the St. Louis game. But I don't think he is going to get this game on Thursday. It's going to be one of Shilovs or Skinner. And I think once Skinner is fully good to go, I think you're probably going to see Murashov go back down to Wilkes-Barre, get those playoff games. I kind of think right now he's more up as a precaution, but hey, he's at least getting some reps. That's good. I just don't think he's going to get the start on Thursday, though I know some fans would probably want that.
Right. I do think it's mostly precautionary at this point, because with the reporting from both Haas and Yohe that Skinner's looking a lot better, I think that at this point, he's probably just here in case Skinner can't go. And I wouldn't be shocked to see him as just a backup on Thursday if Skinner can't go. Because I started to get some pushback this weekend, as well as this morning when it became official that he was recalled. People saying, oh, you said they weren't going to do it. You said they weren't going to do it. Listen, I still stand behind what I said about this. It's a house money season. They are way further ahead and way better than anybody expected them to be, but it's also not the middle of a contention window. This isn't 2016 where Marc-Andre Fleury gets hurt ahead of the playoffs and you think, oh no, the only thing that could derail this potential championship run is not having a goaltender. But then you had Matt Murray in the AHL who was ready to come up and take the reins. This is a team that is still in the middle of its retool on the fly, and they weren't supposed to be here. So you still have Artie Shilovs, you still have Stuart Skinner, and you let it ride. And you let Sergei Murashov continue to develop in the AHL. Now, this is obviously a little bit different. If one of those two get hurt or can't go, he is a good option and your best option to call up and have him on the roster. But you want Sergei Murashov to be your goaltender for the next 10, 15, if not more years. And the best way to do that is to allow him to continue to develop in the American League this year. let him be that guy down there. Let him dominate down there. Let him finish the job down there. Even if it doesn't mean you win the Calder Cup, it just means he gets that experience of being the guy. His confidence increases. He gets better. And then he becomes ready to be a full-time NHL goaltender. You don't want to rush him. This isn't a team where you're thinking, oh God, they need a goaltender to contend, because I look at them and think their ceiling is a round or two. Now, they've surprised us all year. They could do better than that, but I don't think it hinges upon whether or not you have Sergei Murashov on the team or not.
That's fair. And again, I think if both are good to go, Skinner and Shilovs, that is, for Thursday, I think you might see Murashov go back down to Wilkes-Barre. They'll probably reassign Gauthier back to Wheeling, even though Gabriel Daigle has just been signed by Wheeling for the rest of the season. So we'll have to see who gets the net for the Wheeling Nailers come the Kelly Cup playoffs. But that is good news that Gabriel Daigle is going to be spending the rest of the 25-26 season with them. But again, I think if Murashov gets the net in any of these games, Pat, I think it's after they've hopefully clinched. You can get him in one of these games. Maybe he plays against Washington, as I said. Maybe you get him in that game against St. Louis, where I think you'll see, especially if you're clinched by then, I think you're going to see multiple guys sit out. We got a question about, could you sit out Ben Kindle for that game maybe in St. Louis? I can maybe see that, considering how much he has played as of late in his first NHL season at 18 years old. Maybe a couple of the other veterans could sit out who are maybe playing through a little bit of injury. But at the very least, they have a good third option in Sergei Murashov. God forbid anything happens, he'll be back up here, And, even if Skinner is not good to go on Thursday, I think Murashov is probably the backup to Shilovs. I think they would start Shilovs for a third straight game, especially with their playoff hopes on the line. You need a win to get in. Well, there's another clinching scenario I'll get to a little bit later on in the show, but you all heard what I said on Monday. You win on Thursday, you're in no matter what. If Skinner can't dress, I assume Murashov will. But again, Pat, the fact that he's looking okay, sounds like he practiced fine. I couldn't get down to the arena today. I'm going to get up to Cranberry tomorrow, so I'll watch a little bit more in depth. I think Skinner is going to be fine here for at least the weekend, if not Thursday. And if that's the case, I think Murashov will probably go back down. But hey, he's getting in some reps. It gets everyone excited, rightfully so. He's had insane numbers this year for Wilkes-Barre. But again, I want to see what he can do for that Calder Cup run. God forbid anything happens, you can call him back up. But he finishes this off, he's going to be on this team next year.
So do I. And I'll throw us all the way back to October when we were talking about the likes of Ben Kindle and Harrison Brunick and their chances to make the team. I also do think if this team clinches on Thursday and you keep Murashov around, you kind of hinted at it, where those last few games, if you want to give them a start or two, don't think that's the worst idea, because it's similar to what we said about Brunick and Kindle when we were still wondering whether or not they were going to make the team. And I know it's already happened with Murashov this year, but it's also not the worst thing for his development to give him a taste, to give him a look, just to say almost a measuring stick of,
even like a reward for, hey, you're having a great season. We're in the playoffs. Go out there, maybe start against Washington. I can see that, but also at the same time, I can see them just reassigning him back to Wilkes-Barre if both Skinner and Shilovs are good to go for Thursday. So I can
for sure. And I'm just saying, I don't think at the end of the day, if this team clinches on Thursday, it's the same thing that goes with resting some players down the stretch, is you give some of your AHL guys a reward or a taste, and you just let them see what they got to do, see how they stack up, see where they are developmentally, even though those games most likely, if it goes the way we want it to, aren't going to be your typical NHL games. It's going to be teams that aren't in the playoffs, a team that's already in and is just playing out the thread. But it would not be the worst idea if you give him a taste and a little bit of a shot, just to say, hey, you're playing really well down in the A. We're going to give you an opportunity to start here, do your best, and then you're going to go and lead this team in the Calder Cup playoffs while we're going into the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like, him starting for Wilkes-Barre in the Calder Cup playoffs, that is probably 99% going to happen unless something unforeseen happens on this end of things. But as I said too, if you want to give him, a reward / a small taste of the end of the season after they've hopefully clinched, I can see that. So we'll see what happens. It's just exciting that, hey, he's getting some reps, and I'm sure he'll be at practice on Wednesday as well up in Cranberry before the rest of the team as well flies out to Newark to try and clinch that playoff spot in New Jersey. But that's going to do it for this first segment. Coming up in the second segment, Rickard Rakell was named the NHL's first star of the week on Monday, and for good reason. Pat and I are going to talk about just how great he has been as of late, coming up right after this. But before we get to that, we have to tell you all about our first sponsor, which is FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here's what I like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app also makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel, play your game. And we're not done. We still got to tell you about our second sponsor, which is Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inboxes overflowing in the one position you have to fill still that's sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed's sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed's sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show, you will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job post the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed's sponsored jobs. All right, we're back here on the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-host, Patrick Hampton. Pat, I'm rocking my Arsenal shirt today. It's the Champions League quarterfinal, leg one, Arsenal versus Sporting. Road game, got to get off to a good note. I'm hoping for just at least a draw, take these guys back to the Emirates, and then hopefully finish them off next week, get to the semifinals. I love this competition, and they're also trying to win the Premier League. So hopefully it's a good day to be an Arsenal fan, and it's not been pretty, though, the last couple of weeks. But
I mean, I'm just sitting here wearing a Rocket City Trash Pandas minor league baseball hat because I thought it looked cool. So not as fun for me today, but up the Arsenal, whatever they say. I don't know the saying. Sorry. I'm not even trying to be snarky. I'm just not a soccer guy.
It's okay. Come on, you Gunners. Is
okay. I genuinely did not know it.
It's okay. You don't follow soccer that much, but I'm loving it right now. They're still alive in two very big competitions, even though the last couple of weeks they've been knocked out of two other competitions. Anyways, that's enough soccer talk for today. I hope nobody tuned out of this episode, but let's get to Rickard Rakell, Pat. NHL's first star of the week, 7 goals, 8 points during that time, 7 goals in his last 5 games as well, by the way. He now has 24 goals and 48 points in 57 games. If he had not missed several weeks earlier in the season with that broken hand, he would be over 30 goals right now. He is playing the best hockey of his season right now, and he's doing it, Pat, by going back and forth at different positions. He's been at wing, but lately he's also been at center, and he's been playing a lot better at center. I think he's been better at faceoffs. He looks more comfortable being more of a distributor, even though his release is more of his bread and butter, in my opinion. But he's looking more comfortable with his line mates. He's also playing well on the penalty kill. I am just really liking his overall game right now. Also has 11 goals in his last 10 games, 14 goals total since the NHL came back from the Olympics. If it wasn't for him and especially his, Swedish teammate Erik Karlsson, I don't know where this team would be right now, considering how much time Crosby and Malkin missed during the month of March. Both of those players, but especially Rakell, really stepped up during the month of March. And Rakell, congratulations to him. Very deserving of the NHL's first star of the week.
The stats are nice. They're great. And it is a well-deserved honor for Rickard Rakell being the first star of the week. But you brought up the most impressive point of it, is that he has not been on a set line in a set position for the most recent past. It has been games at wing, games at center, different line mates, up and down the top six. And he just continues to play really well. And the thing that I have really enjoyed, and it's always been kind of an understated part of his game, is that he plays with an edge. He's not your traditional physical player. He's not laying the body all the time. He's not throwing massive hits, but he gets to the dirty areas. He does really well in the corners. He's really good in front of the net. And when he plays with that little bit of a physical edge, his game goes to a different level. And we have seen that since the Penguins have come back from the Olympic break. He has been just a hound on the puck in the offensive zone. And it kind of is a great personification of what has been an underrated part of this Penguins team this year. Yeah, they're not the Florida Panthers. They're not the Tampa Bay Lightning, but this is a sneakily physical team. They play a hard game. They are not afraid to go to the corners. They're not afraid to play a little physical. I don't remember. I'd have to probably go back to 16, 17, 18, and even a little bit in 19. This team has some sandpaper, and it's something that they have been missing for a while. But Kyle Dubas has done a good job of not falling into the Jim Rutherford trap of, oh, I just got to go get these big brutes who their only goal is to either throw fists or throw hits and just be big for nothing. You look at guys like, obviously, I know that Rickard Rakell was not a Dubas acquisition, but he is one of those players. Anthony Mantha, big dude, plays with a bit of an edge, and look at him this year. Career highs. Igor Chinnikov, bigger guy, plays fast, sneakily physical. Justin Brazeau, massive human being, but still has some offensive upside. He has scored 17 goals, more than 30 points this year. Parker Wotherspoon on the back end. He's been a really good stay-at-home defenseman, but look at how much he was in the Panthers' kitchen this past weekend and this season as a whole.
Him and Matthew Tkachuk aren't exchanging Christmas cards this year, that's for sure.
And then look at a couple other guys. He hasn't played a lot since becoming a Penguin, but when he's been in the lineup, Solovyov, same deal. Pretty physical player. Elmer Soderblom, he ain't big for nothing. He's the biggest guy on the team, but he still mixes it up. This is a team that, when I look at the way they have been playing, the reason I said in the first segment that I see their ceiling is a round or two victory is because this isn't a team that isn't built for the postseason. This is a team that, if they play the way they have been playing, they're a team that's in the mix once they get into the Eastern Conference playoffs, should they get in.
Yeah, and I still think they need to clean up some of their play in their own zone. They're still giving up too many goals. I'd like to get some more saves, both from Artie and Stuart Skinner, but if both of those can stabilize ever so slightly going into the playoffs, I like their matchup. Whoever they get in round one, assuming they finish this off, assuming they get in and potentially they get home ice, I like their odds against really anyone in that 2-3. The one team that I'd have at the bottom, even though it's weird because they dominate them all year, are the Islanders, but that's mainly for historical purposes, just because the Islanders have been the Penguins' boogeyman since basically this team came into the NHL. I'd have the Flyers more towards the top, Columbus a little below them, and then I'd have the Islanders below them. Again, might be a weird order to some people, but I personally like the way they match up against the Flyers. I think they have what it takes to win that series. I think they can also win a series against Columbus as well. The Islanders, I think they can beat them, but it's just like, again, I've seen the way a lot of these series have gone, and I don't like them. And then you have that X factor with Ilya Sorokin. So that also scares me. If you want to throw Washington in there, Pat, I'd have them third behind Columbus, but above the Islanders. I know, might sound weird. That's my order, but Logan Thompson also scares me as the Capitals goaltender. But I think they can definitely beat any of those teams. It gets trickier if you play Carolina in the second round, where they can play with them. They showed that all year. I don't know if I would take the Penguins to win in a series right now against the Hurricanes, but I think they can definitely give them a series if it gets that far. So again, it's all going to come down to whether the defense stabilizes a little bit more. They're not giving up as many goals, that the goaltending can give you, some more saves overall. But this team, it's fun. It's been a magical season. The forward depth is especially great. But you mentioned something about going full Jim Rutherford. Kyle Dubas has not had Tom Wilson break his brain like Wilson broke Rutherford's brain after 2016-17 when he felt the need to go get tougher and heavier for just reasons that I still don't understand to this day, and it's almost been a decade since then. But going back to Rakell for a second, I've also liked the way that he has played in his own zone. He's just playing really strong 200-foot hockey as a center. And even when he's been on the wing with Crosby and Rust, I have thought that he's been the best defensive player on that line. It used to be Sid, but his defensive game has kind of gone downhill a little bit as he's gotten older, which that's fine. He's still elite offensively. You're going to sacrifice some of that defensive work for how well you are offensively. But I've noticed that Rakell is playing better in his own zone, breaking up plays with his stick. His board battles have especially been better as of late. That's another area of his game that I think is also getting better. So just an all-around great stretch of hockey for Rickard Rakell.
That's why, too, when the news came out, especially with Sid being out and then Gino being suspended, that I wasn't all that worried about Rakell taking over center duties. My only worry was in the faceoff circle, which, as we know, is very important. But everything else around it, you said it. Rakell is pretty solid defensively. And if you're going to be a center in the NHL, unless you're one of the greatest of the greats who does nothing but score, you do have to have some defensive acumen. I think of Gino in his prime. We weren't worried about Evgeny Malkin, the defensive center. We were worried about Evgeny Malkin, the guy who puts up 80, 90, 100 plus points so you could deal with the defensive deficiencies. With Rakell, he has a solid two-way game, so I was not all that concerned about him taking over center duties for the time being. But overall, it has been more than just a good week for Rickard Rakell. It has been a good month for Rickard Rakell. And you also said this. I wonder what would have happened this season had he not been hurt, because he definitely probably would have been chasing down 40 goals.
Yeah, he'd be close. I think he'd be over 30 goals right now. I mean, again, that's only 6 more goals considering that he has 24 right now and 48 points. He'd be well on his way to potentially another career year. Like that, you look at what he did last year, 35 goals, 70 points in 81 games. He's already at 48 and 57. I think he'd be close if he stayed fully healthy for this season. But that's going to do it for the second segment. Coming up to end the show, it's another big night around the league, even though the Penguins do not play. And Pat and I are going to get you all set for another big night around the Eastern Conference, especially the Metropolitan Division, coming up right after this. But before we get to that, we have to tell you all about our final sponsor, which is Quo. Spring is a natural reset point, and if there's one thing that can quietly cost businesses money, it's messy communication. Missed calls, scattered texts, no clear thread of who said what, and that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, a text, or an opportunity. Part I love, everything lives in one clean thread: calls, texts, voicemails. The whole team sees the conversation so nothing falls through the cracks, and the AI summarizes save serious time by logging calls and highlighting the next steps automatically. Make this the season no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnhl. That's quo.com/lockedonnhl. And that's Quo. No missed calls and no missed customers. All right, we're back here on the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am one of your hosts, Hunter Hodes, joined by my co-hosts, Patrick Damp. And Pat, we just got a little bit of breaking news. The Penguins have announced their team awards for today. And guess who the MVP for the season is, Pat?
Well, unfortunately, I also had this come across my computer, so it's not going to be a guessing game, because if you weren't going to bring it up, I was going to bring it up. But to the surprise of what should be nobody, team MVP is Erik Karlsson.
Yes, Erik Karlsson, the team MVP. Of course, 14 goals, 64 points. He has been a man on a mission ever since the season started. He was putting the Penguins on his back in the month of March. Yes, I did also say Rickard Rakell, but don't forget about Erik Karlsson. He was on bath salts, especially when Crosby was hurt, when Malkin was hurt. He was doing everything for this team in all three zones on the back end. I want to see playoff Karlsson. He's been awesome on the power play, great at 5-on-5. He's been good on the penalty kill. Literally any situation this year, he has excelled at. So very deserved. The player's player, Pat, Sidney Crosby, really no surprise there. The unsung hero, Cookie Noah Chari. I'm honestly not too surprised because you see, like, when they hand out their helmet in the locker room, they love that guy. You saw Erik Karlsson's video when they were teasing Achari about, oh my God, 10 assists this year. It was hilarious. So that's great. Rookie of the year, Ben Kindle. No surprise, of course.
Can I also just say this about the Ben Kindle Rookie of the Year award that he just got? To all of our listeners, please go to the Penguins website or their social media pages to look at the picture of Ben Kindle getting the award. Because everybody, if you remember the video from their team charity event where he had the tie over the vest that he got chirped for, we've got another Ben Kindle wardrobe joke to make. He's still wearing his hockey gloves while receiving the award. And you look at every other picture and, oh, wait, no, I take that back. It's also Erik Karlsson doing it. But it's just like you watch the way he plays and you're like, this kid, he's not an 18-year-old. He's a 5 to 10 year vet. He's been doing this for years. And then you see all the other stuff and you go, oh yeah, that's an 18-year-old kid.
He's hilarious. Like, and you can just tell how much they love him so much. Again, you go back to you brought up the night of the assists. That was great. And then even here, just he's awesome, man. I love that guy so much. Blake Lizotte, Ryan Shea, defensive players of the year. Not too surprised there. Lizotte, he's been great in his own zone. He tries to drag this team into the fight when they need a spark at times. He's also been great on the PK. And what else is there to say about Ryan Shea? Career year, every which way you look at it, he's been steady in his own zone. Not surprised that he also gets this award as well. And then Brian Ruspat, the recipient of the Baz Bastian Memorial Trophy. This is the Media Good Guy Award. This is what I get for trying to read and talk at the same time on the podcast, but he is the Media Good Guy Award. It was presented by the Pittsburgh chapter of the Professional Hockey Writers Association to the player who the local media wants to acknowledge for his cooperation throughout the year. Not surprised by that either. He always will give great quotes. He's one of the top leaders on the team. Whenever the core three don't want to talk, Brian Russ is always like, hey, come on over here. I'll send a message. Even though Patty doesn't have the A, he is still one of the top leaders on this team. So really no surprises here at all.
No, all those awards are going to exactly who they should go to. The only one that I might add, I might change is the dual winners of Defensive Player of the Year. I'd keep Lizotte, obviously, and I might swap out Shea for Wotherspoon, but at that point, splitting hairs. They both are having great years. It's an either or and a both and for me. So yeah, all of this, totally all the guys you would expect.
Yeah, Pat's being a little nitpicky there with the Ryan Shea and Parker Wotherspoon, but hey, I think both Shea and Lizotte very deserving. But okay, Pat, let's get to the madness for tonight. So a lot of big games on the docket tonight. The Philadelphia Flyers play the Devils in Jersey. The Devils fresh off the firing of general manager Tom Fitzgerald, and I expect Sheldon Keefe to probably follow suit after the season. I'd be surprised if he survived all of this. So if the Flyers lose in regulation tonight to the Devils, not only do their playoff hopes take a bit of a hit, if you go on Money Puck, the swing if a win versus a loss is pretty crazy. It's that time of year where you get these crazy swings. But if the Flyers lose in regulation, they can only get up to 98 points. Meaning, if the Penguins win on Thursday, Pat, not only do they clinch a playoff spot, they would clinch the second spot in the Metro and home ice. They really can't go up from there. So that's why I think you would see in the final three games, some players getting rested, some call-ups, all that good stuff. They really wouldn't have much to play for those last three games. Now, also, huge game, Columbus-Detroit tonight. That's really big for both teams. They both really need wins to try to stay alive in this playoff race. If the Red Wings are able to beat the Jackets, especially in regulation, the Jackets can no longer pass the Penguins. They can tie them, but as I said on Monday, the Penguins have the tiebreaker. So that would mean the Penguins would only need 1 point in their last 4 games to clinch a playoff spot or any type of loss from the Islanders, because the Islanders, they can only get up to 97 right now. So still, a win and you're in, that still applies. But if Columbus does lose tonight, especially in regulation, the Penguins will only need 1 more loser point in their last 4 games to clinch a playoff spot. So those are the 2 big ones tonight. Boston, Carolina. I mean, Boston really needs a win there for their playoff hopes. Tampa Bay, Ottawa. Ottawa really needs a win there. Otherwise, Pat, not much else on the docket except for some big West games, but we're obviously the Penguins are in the Eastern Conference. That's what we're focusing on for today.
Yeah, this is a big night for the Penguins and where they want to go with their playoff hopes. If they can get some more scoreboard help, it really takes some pressure off of them for the final stretch of the season. And I know that this kind of runs contradictory to me saying you don't want to back in, but if you're able to know that you are in at this point, I do think they quelled a lot of our fears over the weekend against the Panthers, just putting the wood to them for 2 straight games, playing some really complete hockey. I'm not as worried about backing in anymore. But if you know that you can wrap up a spot on Thursday, you can get your team a little bit healthier. You can get your team a little bit more rested over the last week and a half of the season. So that would be really big for them to go into the playoffs healthy and well rested and ready to go in the first round. The other thing that we got to get into real quick before we close out the show is you talked about these 2 things real quickly at the start of the segment. What a crazy couple of days for the Metropolitan Division. Patrick Waugh gets fired by the Islanders. Tom Fitzgerald parts ways with the Devils. Listen, I am here for this new world of the NHL where they're like, where GMs and teams aren't waiting to pull the trigger on moves, because this is a cutthroat all-in business. If you're not doing everything you can to make your team better, what are you even doing here? And I look at the Islanders and I know that it was a bit of a desperation move, but at the same time, you knew that Pete DeBoer was not going to be on the market all summer and into next season. Somebody was going to come calling for him. And if you're the Islanders, you have been really sliding lately. And if you can get Pete DeBoer and hope you get that bump the same way Vegas has gotten it with Torts, you pull that trigger. And as for the Devils, I said this earlier in the year about Fitzgerald. I do think he is just kind of the guy left holding the bag, because I do think he put together a solid team on paper, and then injuries and guys just not panning out kind of hurt him. But that's the price you pay when your team doesn't perform in the NHL.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by the Fitzgerald firing. I felt that was coming for a while just because they had fallen below expectations for this season, especially after such a great start. They were one of the top teams in the league after the first, month and change. And then they really started sliding. Didn't help that they had injuries. They're playing better as of late. They're 12-5-1 in their last 18 games. So the Penguins are going to face a better Devils team on Thursday. They're going to have to be prepared for it. But that's still a team that's not going to the playoffs this year. They've fallen short of expectations. No surprise. The Patrick Waugh one, that was really fascinating. I thought I saw it all when Vegas decided to fire Bruce Cassidy, who I still feel like is one of the top coaches in the league, and hire Tortorella. But then you get this. And I do think part of it is for more of the long-term trajectory of the Islanders, but I also think part of it is Matthew Darche trying to cover his own ass for this season, parting ways with valuable assets at the deadline for players that have simply not worked out. Andre Palat has not been very good there. Braden Shen, I also don't think has been that good there, and he has a long contract still. So I think he's also trying to cover his butt there a little bit, trying to get the team in the playoffs because he paid a premium for some of these players at the deadline, especially Shen. So,
well, Darche said that as much about the hiring of DeBoer, where basically he said it wasn't so much them saying that they were out on Patrick Waugh totally. It was just the fact that they saw where their trajectory was going, and they figured, hey, we got an opportunity to get Pete DeBoer. We might as well just do it now rather than wait and see what happens. So yeah. I do give him credit for that, but I also think you're right in the sense that Darche has made some moves on that roster that they make you scratch your head a little bit, because at one point they looked good, but then the fact they're not panning out, it's also like, well, you got to do something.
Yeah, and remains to be seen if they can get in. I still think that team is mostly carried by Schaefer and Sorokin. I still like Barzell. I like Horvat, but their core is also aging a little bit as a whole. But again, big night tonight. The Penguins cannot clinch before Thursday. I just want to remind everyone. I know people are going to ask us, can the Penguins clinch before they play on Thursday? No, they cannot. It can be a bit easier, especially if the Blue Jackets lose tonight to Detroit. The Penguins would only need 1 point in their last 4 games to clinch, or any type of Islanders loss. But they cannot clinch today or tomorrow. It would have to be on Thursday. So that's going to do it for the Tuesday edition of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to / watch this one. Pat and I will be back with a fresh episode for you all on Wednesday, giving out our picks for Warrior Helmet Wednesday, going over some practice notes, and a whole bunch of other stuff regarding this team before we preview the game on Thursday against the Devils, and then maybe we're celebrating a playoff berth on Friday, and then getting you all set for Penguins Capitals, a back-to-back this weekend. So for Patrick Damp, I am Hunter Hodes. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. We'll be back on Wednesday.